Hello, everyone. Welcome to Verlita's Everything in Between podcast. I am the creator and your host, Verlita Odom. I hope that all has been well with each of you since we were together last. Before I get into today's episode, I want to take the time to extend a huge thank you to each of you who continue to take time out of your busy schedules to listen to my podcast. I now have listeners in Canada and Germany, and I really want to thank my family and my friends for listening and supporting as well. It has been a huge blessing. You guys have been a huge blessing to me, and I hope that I continue to put information out there that you guys find helpful, if not now, perhaps at a later time when it's needed. So again, I just could have never have imagined the support that I've received since starting my podcast back in April of this year. You guys again have been a huge blessing to me. So thank you so much. On today's episode, I am going to be answering a question that was submitted based on the previous episode where I discussed nursing home care or nursing home placement for yourself or your family members. I had several questions submitted. I'm going to take the time today to answer a question regarding advanced directives, which can be pretty detailed to answer. So I hope you guys find the information helpful. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to leave me a voicemail message on Anchor or shoot me an email at only1vlo2@gmail.com. I will try to answer your questions on the next podcast. Again, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks so much for your support. I'll see you after the break. So anytime you hear the terminology or the terms advanced directive, normally we're mentioning power of attorney, a directive to physicians, which is also called a living will, a declaration of mental health treatment, and an out-of-hospital DNR. And there's also a statutory durable power of attorney, but that relates to the individual's property or finances, okay? And I can tell you a little bit about that as well, but I definitely want to primarily talk about the medical documents. I will just put this out there. I am not an attorney, clearly, but these documents, although they are legally binding, they don't have to be completed by an attorney or even with an attorney. The state of Texas allows social workers every single day to explain these documents and to complete these documents with family members and patients. Okay, so what I discussed today is basically going to be how I was trained throughout my years working as a medical social worker, and kind of how I explain these documents in layman's terms to the family members and the patients. The first document we'll talk about is the medical power of attorney. Okay, and the medical power of attorney basically allows a patient to designate what we call an agent to make medical decisions on their behalf if they become incapacitated and cannot make those decisions for themselves. What the medical power of attorney does is, again, designates 1 to 3 individuals responsible for making medical decisions on behalf of a patient who is no longer able to. One of the concerns I always get from patients is they don't want to complete the document, or they're a little apprehensive about completing the document because they feel like if they do, then their medical power of attorney is going to somehow supersede them. I guess overrule them. As long as you're able to make your own decisions, then your decisions will be respected and followed. The medical power of attorney, their authority only comes into play when you or a doctor says that you are no longer able to make your own decisions. But as long as you're able to, then your decisions will be followed. So I will read briefly from the medical power of attorney to give you a better idea of what it says. For example, after the patient designates the medical power of attorney, it states, as the agent or the medical power of attorney, they're able to make any and all healthcare decisions for the patient, except to the extent the patient states otherwise in the document. The medical power of attorney takes effect if I become unable to make my own healthcare decisions, and this fact is certified in writing by my physician. There's a section where you can actually put the limitations on the decision-making authority of the medical power of attorney. But in all my years of helping complete these, I've never had a patient put any limits on their medical power of attorney in that section. Then it goes on into the alternate agent, and it does say that you, as the patient, of course, you are not required to designate an alternate agent, but you may do so. An alternate agent may make the same healthcare decisions as the designated agent if the designated agent is unable or unwilling to act as your agent. If the agent designated is your spouse, the designation is automatically revoked by law if your marriage is dissolved, annulled, or declared void unless this document provides otherwise. And again, then it goes into you listing the first and second alternate agent. And this document is actually a couple of pages. It does also mention in the document that the agent's authority is effective when the doctor certifies that the patient lacks the competence to make healthcare decisions. Your agent is obligated to follow your instructions when making decisions on your behalf. Unless you state otherwise, your agent has the same authority to make decisions about your healthcare as you would have if you were able to make healthcare decisions for yourself. Now, the person you appoint as agent should be someone you know and trust. If you appoint your health or residential care provider, that person has to choose between acting as your agent or acting as your health or residential care provider. The law does not allow a person to reserve or serve as both at the same time. You should inform the person you appoint that you want the person to be your healthcare agent. You should discuss the document with your agent and the physician and give each a signed copy. So that's just reading a little bit from the medical power of attorney. In order to complete this document and make it official, you can have it either notarized by a notary, or you can have the document signed by two competent witnesses who are not related to you as the patient. So that is just the medical power of attorney. Just briefly going over that. I've been asked many times before, well, when should I complete it? Well, you should complete it while you're able to, because, if you get into a position where, you're not mentally able to, you're not, let's say dementia, Alzheimer's, an accident where you're not aware, then it's kind of too late for you to complete it at that point. And I have had families come to me wanting to complete a medical power of attorney when the patient's ability to understand it was definitely questionable. And if that's ever the case, I do not complete the document with the family member because I have a license and I have to protect my license. Now, a directive to physicians and family or surrogates. This is the form that you want to complete in order to make your wishes known in regards to life-sustaining measures. If you're terminally ill and there are just certain things you do want done or certain things you don't want done, the directive to physicians, otherwise known as living will, is the document that you definitely want to consider completing. Okay. Now I'm going to read a little bit from it when it comes to the instructions for completing this particular document. Okay. It says that this is an important legal document known as an advance directive. It is designated and designed to help you communicate your wishes about your medical treatment at some time in the future when you are unable to make your wishes known because of illness or injury. These wishes are usually based on personal values. In particular, you may want to consider what burdens or hardships of treatment you would be willing to accept for a particular amount of benefit obtained if you were seriously ill. You are encouraged to discuss your values and wishes with your family or chosen spokesperson, as well as your physician. Your physician, other healthcare provider, or medical institution may provide you with various resources to assist you in completing your advance directive. Brief definitions, of course, are listed on the back, and it's definitely important that any person that's completing a living will needs to go through that, okay? But in addition to the advance directive, Texas law provides for two other types of directives that can be important during a serious illness, and that's the medical power of attorney, which we just discussed, and then we will also talk about the out-of-hospital do not resuscitate order, okay? So, you may wish to discuss these with your physician, family, hospital representative, or other advisors. You may also wish to complete a directive related to the donation of organs and tissues as well. So basically, the directive gives you options. For instance, it says, if in the judgment of a physician, I'm suffering from a terminal condition from which I am expected to die within 6 months, even with available life-sustaining treatment provided, in accordance with prevailing standards of medical care, you can check either I request that treatments other than those needed to keep me comfortable are discontinued or withheld, and my physician allow me to die as gently as possible, or you can check I request that I be kept alive in this terminal condition using available life-sustaining treatment. You can check one or the other. Okay. The next section discusses if in the best interest or in the judgment of your physician, you're suffering from an irreversible condition so that you cannot care for yourself or make decisions for yourself, and you're expected to die without life-sustaining treatment provided in accordance with prevailing standards in medical care. You can check either I request that treatments other than those needed to keep me comfortable be discontinued or withheld, and my physician allow me to die as gently as possible, or I request that I be kept alive in this irreversible condition using available life-sustaining treatment. Okay. So, when we talk about life-sustaining treatment, what are we talking about? We're talking about a ventilator. We're talking about a feeding tube. Life-sustaining treatment means treatment that, based on reasonable medical judgment, sustains the life of a patient and without which the patient would die. Okay. So, kidney dialysis treatment, like I said, ventilator, artificially administered nutrition and hydration. What is an irreversible condition? It means a condition, injury, or illness that may be treated but is never cured or eliminated. It could also mean it leaves a person unable to care for and make decisions for the person's own self, and that without life-sustaining treatment provided in accordance with the prevailing standard of medical care is fatal. A terminal condition means an incurable condition caused by injury, disease, or illness that, according to reasonable medical judgment, will produce death within 6 months. That's why sometimes you might see someone go on hospice care, because there has been a physician who has, because of their, illness, disease, or comorbidities, who has certified that the patient is very likely to die within 6 months. And then that's when sometimes some people will make the decision to go on hospice care, okay, to be kept comfortable during that time, especially if their pain is not managed by their physician that they normally see. So, a directive to physicians is very important. If you do want life-sustaining measures to keep you alive or prolong your life, or if you don't, it's a way to specify that and make sure that your wishes are known and followed. Okay, and yes, you can have the living will and a medical power of attorney. Okay, all basically your according to the directive to physician, it says it right here. It says, if a medical power of attorney has been executed, then an agent already has been named, and you should not list additional names in this particular document. Okay. Because it's not necessary, because you've already named the agent to make decisions for you. So again, you can make your decisions and your wishes known in this particular document, and then your medical power of attorney, when they get that authority to make decisions, would just uphold the decisions that you've already put in the document. Okay, that's what should happen anyway. When I come back, we will talk about an out-of-hospital DNR. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First, it's free. Second, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. That's pretty awesome. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other forums. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. An out-of-hospital DNR is an out-of-hospital do not resuscitate. So basically the patient is saying, if my heart stops beating, I do not want an attempt to be made to resuscitate me. Okay. I don't want mouth to mouth. I don't want to be shocked back. I just want to be, left alone, to have a natural death. It's really a personal decision. And of course, there's never any pressure one way or the other. And if there is, it's definitely not anything I would ever be a part of. What you want to do is just inform the patient of their right, and allow them to make a decision. In all cases, in all of these documents, with all of these documents, you want to allow the patient to make their decision, with consultation of their doctor and family if needed or if necessary. I personally am a full code, okay? And a full code is someone who does not have a DNR, do not resuscitate. I am not against the DNR. I do believe at some point in my life I will complete one. But at this point in time, I would want an attempt to be made to resuscitate me. As I've explained to families before, it does not mean the attempt will be successful, okay? But there are some people who say, I do at least want an attempt to be made. The next question I normally get is, well, if I am a full code and my heart stops beating, they, do whatever they need to do, chest compressions, they shock me, they do whatever they need to do, and they are able to resuscitate me, that's great. But I don't want to be kept alive on any type of machines. And that is fine. You can do that. You can be a full code, meaning you want an attempt to be made. But then you can also say, if after the doctors have assessed me, they feel like I would need some type of life-sustaining measure in order for me to live, then that I don't want. I don't want to be kept on machines. I want an attempt to be made. If the attempt is successful, however, it's gone too far, I have brain damage, I have whatever damage, some type of bodily organ damage, then that's not something I want to do as far as being on life support. So yes, you can be a full code and also have a directive to physicians or a living will to say, but I don't want to be on machines. Okay. So that your family is aware. And that is one of the reasons why you really need to discuss these things with your family members and really take the steps to make your wishes known to them. Even if you don't have a document to back it up, even if you don't have a medical power of attorney designated, you really still need to have someone you trust who understands what your wishes are, and they can help make sure that your wishes are followed. Okay. The other document, the fourth document, is a declaration for mental health treatment. And basically, you complete this document when you are of sound mind. Okay. Again, I've had family members come to me wanting me to assist with completing documents. Could be any one of these documents when it was clear to everyone the patient was just not able to do so. Well, again, it's too late then for us in the hospital setting or the nursing home setting to do that. The declaration for mental health treatment, basically the patient is saying that, they are of sound mind. They're willing and voluntarily make a declaration for mental health treatment to be followed if it is determined by a court that the patient's ability to understand the nature and consequences of a proposed treatment, including the benefits, risks, and alternatives to the proposed treatment, is impaired to the extent that they lack the capacity to make mental health treatment decisions. Okay. Mental health treatment means electroconvulsive, or other convulsive treatment, treatment of mental illness with psychoactive medication, and preferences regarding emergency mental health treatment. This is probably the document that is, in my experience, is the least completed document, because I have normally seen most hospitals and nursing homes, follow and basically follow the medical power of attorney and allow that person to make all medical decisions, including mental health treatment. That's just been my experience. Now, whether it's right or wrong, hey, I don't know. But normally, if they have the medical power of attorney completed, they will rely on the MPOA to make those decisions, including mental health. So this is actually kind of the document that I just have the least experience with, and the one that I really come across the least. Now, the form says the instructions that you include in this declaration will be followed only if a court believes that you are incapacitated to make treatment decisions. Otherwise, you will be considered able to give or withhold consent for the treatments. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why I don't really run into this that much, because it clearly says the judge has to do that and make the decisions, whereas the medical power of attorney talks about the doctor, the physician, being able to kind of declare or say the person is, not able to make decisions. And, we really have more access, obviously, to the physicians than we would a judge. So perhaps that's the reason why the other document is utilized a little bit more. And I know this seems like a lot of information, and it can be, but it's always better to kind of have this already, something that's been introduced to you, versus being in a position later and wishing you'd had those documents, or not knowing anything at all about the documents, or perhaps not even having someone to take the time to explain it to you, which hopefully that won't be the case. But I know for myself, repetition, it helps me learn. And so even if this is being introduced to you today, you can go back and listen to it again. Or if down the road you are in a position where you need these documents completed, you'll remember, because you've already kind of had an introduction to them. It won't be such a foreign idea to you. Okay, when a doctor mentions documents needing to be completed, or they're thinking that maybe it's time to have a living will, or medical power of attorney, or out of hospital do not resuscitate, or a directive to treat for mental health issues. Okay, so that's why I put the information out there for you guys, and hopefully it helps. If you have any questions based on today's episode, leave me a voicemail message on Anchor, or shoot me an email at onlyoneVLO2@gmail.com. Again, that's onlyoneVLO2@gmail.com. If you enjoy listening to my podcast and you're learning a lot, you should consider becoming a financial supporter. You may do so by clicking the donate or support link. Or if you prefer to give directly, you may do so via my Cash App, which is Elevated Faith, or my PayPal, which is Elevated Faith VO. Your support helps to ensure the publishing of future episodes. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I thank you for listening and showing support. Until next time, be well.